Okay, so obviously I don't hate Europeans. Obviously we're in Europe for a reason. Obviously we enjoy lots of things about Europe. Those things go without saying. There are a few things though that annoy me, and I don't think it's, because we're operating a freedom channel here. We're not tied to the constraints of marketing and advertising, and we're not trying to monetize this channel, so I don't have to really worry about speaking my mind. So what you're about to hear is me speaking my mind on the personal space issue, which honestly for me has been one of the only or very few frustrations that we've seen since we've been here. But I think it's an important one, because it certainly frustrates me on a daily basis. So here we go. Okay, so one of the things I wanted to talk to everybody about is personal space, and I've redone this video a handful of times. The only one I've actually had multiple takes of because I had to back myself off on pissing people off. Nobody cares about your personal space, and it's very difficult to be a Canadian walking around in that environment where you're polite, you step out of the way from people, you don't sneeze in their face, you don't maybe, but it's a frustrating thing here. The lack of interest in anyone's personal space is so bizarre, and I really think Americans get a bad rap. Everybody assumes it's the Americans that are the ones that are cutting in front of you or asshole ignoring you or whatever. I haven't experienced that at all. Anybody here that I've seen that's American or North American follows kind of the basic rules of personal space, but and so do the Portuguese for that matter. I haven't run into any locals that I've had that issue with, but when you see all the other Europeans, right, whether it's the French, the Italians, the Germans, any of them, just the lack of concern for other people on the street is absolutely amazing. Whether that's blowing smoke in your face, whether that's sneezing in your face, whether that's coughing in your face, whether that's ignoring you on the sidewalk while you go hand in hand with four of you across and take the entire sidewalk up without moving. It's crazy. So whether it's sidewalk etiquette or just basic acknowledgement of personal space, it's really not great here. And it's predominantly coming from Europeans, not from Americans. Very noticeable. Let's talk a little bit about sidewalk etiquette for a second. I'll show you what I mean. Okay, so let's think a little bit about how any sane human views sidewalk etiquette, right? You've got two people coming on one side of the sidewalk, one person coming the other way on the other side of the sidewalk. This shouldn't be rocket science, right? One of the people on the side with two people steps behind the other person, creates a space so that both people have the ability to walk across the sidewalk. That's because in any sane person's mind, there's this invisible line of human decency. And if you don't think about that line, it creates all kinds of problems. So let's look at how Europeans view sidewalk etiquette. Europeans, let's take your average group of Europeans on the sidewalk. And this is what we see just about every day, walking towards us, and we're trying to walk the other way. In single file, but we can't because that way is blocked, and then if we try another way we can't because that way is blocked, and even if we try to go as far over as we possibly can on the other side, that way is blocked. It is just an impossible way to deal with the situation. So what winds up happening is we wind up having to make way for everybody else on the sidewalk who don't even recognize that we exist, or you'd run shoulder to shoulder into these people. So look, I know I'm generalizing, and I know there's lots of other circumstances where this may not be the case, and it's probably not every European out there. I'm just making a statement of what I've seen, things I've observed as a citizen, as a Canadian walking on sidewalks, and just generally out and about so much here as we are. I also want to point out, it doesn't matter, it's not a right versus left side of the road thing, because I've traveled the world a bit, so I've been in places where people generally walk on the right or generally walk on the left. It's pretty easy to adapt to that, not a huge issue. This is just purely completely ignoring other people that are on the road, on the sidewalk with you, and just kind of plowing your way through. I've had a couple now where I've just decided, forget it, I'm just going to stay on my
keep my shoulders straight and walk as far as I can to right or left, depending upon which way the person's coming at me. But still, you wind up with people that are like, walking across side by side with each other, oblivious to the fact that I'm there, and I wind up driving my shoulder into them. Now, thankfully, I weigh more than, at least probably double what the average European does, so that part hasn't been a huge issue, but I'm sure it shocks them, and I've had a few of those instances where I've had to actually do that, because I've given up. I've given up on trying to plant myself on the side of the road, and let these people just sort of have their way with the sidewalk. We share it, right? We're all in this together. I recall being something that we talked about fairly recently. In that sense, it's a lot like luggage carousel etiquette, which we could have a whole other session about. But anyways, that's it. That's my rant. It's probably the only kind of thing I've experienced so far that has been generally unsatisfying, and I don't want to dwell on those things, but it's something that I run into every day, so I thought I would share.